My sister bullied me for 15 years, but I inherited Dad's secret $4.2 billion empire instead of her. Being adopted was never a secret in our family. My sister Emma made sure of that. Every chance she got, she'd remind me of my place. "You're not real family," she'd whisper at family gatherings, her perfect smile never reaching her eyes. "Dad only took you in because your parents died in a car crash when you were 2. Remember, Lily? You're here because of charity, Dad's good heart." For 15 years, I endured her taunts. I watched as Emma got the best of everything: private school, expensive cars, and unlimited shopping sprees. Meanwhile, Dad insisted I work part-time jobs to learn the value of money and live modestly. Emma saw this as proof that I wasn't truly loved, and honestly, I started to believe it too. Our father, Robert Wilson, was a quiet man. To the world, he was the owner of Wilson Enterprises, a mid-size investment firm. To Emma, he was a walking ATM. To me, he was a mystery, a man of few words but countless lessons. 3 months ago, everything changed. Dad was diagnosed with aggressive pancreatic cancer, and the doctors gave him mere weeks to live. Emma wasted no time asserting her control. She barely let me visit him in the hospital. "Family only," she'd say sweetly to the nurses, shooting me pointed looks. But Dad insisted on seeing me alone one afternoon. His face was pale, his voice weak, but his eyes were sharp. "Lily," he whispered, pressing a small key into my hand. "After I'm gone, go to First National Bank. Box 2247. Everything will make sense." Before I could ask him what he meant, Emma stormed in, claiming he needed rest. That was the last time I spoke to him. 2 days later, he passed away. The funeral was exactly as Emma wanted: grand, expensive, and showy. She gave a tearful eulogy about being Dad's only real daughter and honoring his legacy. I stayed in the back, clutching the key Dad had given me. A week later, we gathered in Mr. Harrison's office for the will reading. Emma arrived glowing with confidence, her husband James by her side. The room was packed with board members and executives, all expecting Emma to take control of Wilson Enterprises. Mr. Harrison, Dad's lawyer for 30 years, cleared his throat. Before we begin, Mr. Wilson left a video to be played. Emma leaned back in her chair, smirking. "Daddy always loved his dramatics," she said, earning a few chuckles. The screen lit up and there was Dad, recorded just weeks before his death. "If you're watching this, I'm gone," he began, his voice steady. "And it's time for the truth to come out." The room fell silent as Dad revealed the existence of a hidden empire minus 15 companies operating independently, worth a combined $4.2 billion. "Emma," he said, his tone sharp, "you've spent your life believing you were entitled to everything, bullying your sister, thinking your blood made you special. You were wrong." Emma's face went pale. "Lily," Dad continued, "that key I gave you opens a safety deposit box containing everything: documents, ownership rights, everything." While Emma played executive at Wilson Enterprises, you were learning the real lessons: humility, hard work, and compassion. That's why you, my beloved adopted daughter, are the sole heir to my empire. The room erupted into chaos. Emma leaped to her feet, screaming, "This isn't possible." But Dad wasn't finished. "Wilson Enterprises was a test, Emma, one you failed spectacularly. Your arrogance, your cruelty to your sister, and your treatment of employees were all noted." Mr. Harrison paused the video and handed me a thick folder. "These documents name Lily Wilson as CEO and sole owner of all 15 companies, including Wilson Enterprises." Emma lunged for the papers, but security stepped forward, blocking her path. "This isn't over," she shrieked. "I'm his real daughter." I stood, the key burning in my hand. "Blood doesn't make a family," I said quietly. "Dad taught me that." Emma's husband James suddenly spoke, his voice calm. The stock price just jumped 30% on news of the leadership change. Emma turned to him in disbelief. "James." But he was already walking toward me, extending his hand. "Miss Wilson, I look forward to working under your leadership." Emma collapsed into her chair, mascara streaking her cheeks. I felt no triumph, only a deep sense of responsibility. The contents of Dad's safety deposit box were overwhelming. Files detailing each company, from tech startups to real estate ventures. Each folder contained not just legal documents but personal notes from Dad, explaining his vision and why he chose me. One note read, I watched you volunteer at homeless shelters while Emma demanded new cars. You have the heart this empire needs. Even more shocking was a second video. Lily, Dad's face appeared on Mr. Harrison's laptop, those part-time jobs I made you take. Each one was part of my empire. Your supervisors have been reporting to me for years about your kindness, work ethic, and leadership. My mind reeled. Every job, every challenge, had been carefully orchestrated. Emma didn't go quietly. She hired lawyers claiming Dad was mentally incompetent, and I had unduly influenced him. But Dad had prepared for this. At an emergency board meeting, Emma arrived with an army of lawyers only to find the room filled with unfamiliar faces. "Allow me to introduce the real board," Mr. Harrison said, gesturing to representatives from all 15 companies. Each one shared their observations. Miss Emma Wilson belittled employees. Miss Lily Wilson stayed late to mentor junior staff. Emma's face turned ashen. Then Mr. Harrison delivered the final blow. "Your father left a clause. Any legal challenge to Lily's leadership results in your shares being donated to her charitable foundation." Her lawyers quickly withdrew. The days following the board meeting were a whirlwind. I had been thrust into the world of billion-dollar corporations overnight. Though I had no formal title until the paperwork was finalized, people were already looking to me for leadership. Emma had been effectively sidelined, her influence gone. I spent hours with Mr. Harrison, poring over the legal documents Dad had left behind. The files detailed the operations of all 15 companies, each one more impressive than the last. Tech startups disrupting their industries, real estate ventures in prime locations, and renewable energy projects poised to lead the market. "Your father built an empire in secret to avoid unwanted attention," Mr. Harrison explained. He believed that the best way to build something lasting was to do so quietly, without interference. It was overwhelming, but there was no time to lose. The companies needed direction, and the employees needed reassurance. That evening, I returned to my apartment exhausted. Sitting on my couch, I pulled out the small key Dad had given me. I remembered his words, "Everything will make sense." Slowly, it was starting to. He had been preparing me for this my entire life, though I never realized it. I opened my laptop and started drafting a plan. Tomorrow would be my first official day visiting the companies. I needed to introduce myself to the employees, learn from them, and show them that Dad's faith in me wasn't misplaced. The next morning, I arrived at the headquarters of Wilson Enterprises. The building was sleek and modern, all glass and steel. It felt strange walking into a place I had always associated with Emma. This time, though, I wasn't a visitor. James met me at the entrance. "Good morning, Miss Wilson," he said, offering a polite smile. "We've arranged a meeting with the senior management team." "Thank you, James," I replied, feeling a pang of awkwardness. This man had been Emma's partner in life and business, yet here he was, ready to support me. In the conference room, a dozen senior executives were waiting. Some looked skeptical, others curious. I could sense the tension. Many of them had been loyal to Emma, and now they were unsure of what to expect from me. I took a deep breath and began. "I know this transition may be difficult for some of you. Many of you worked closely with my sister, and change is never easy. But my goal isn't to tear down what my father built. It's to honor his legacy by leading with the same principles he taught me: hard work, humility, and compassion." For the next hour, I listened more than I spoke. The executives shared their concerns, their hopes, and their questions. By the end of the meeting, the atmosphere had shifted. They didn't fully trust me yet, but they were willing to give me a chance. Meanwhile, Emma wasn't taking her defeat lightly. But she had lost her shares in her position. She wasn't ready to give up entirely. She called a press conference intending to expose what she called the unfair manipulation that had led to her disinheritance. Standing in front of reporters, she painted herself as the victim of an elaborate scheme orchestrated by Dad and me. "I was the rightful heir," she said, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. "I built Wilson Enterprises with my own hands, and my father's final decisions were influenced by outsiders." But she wasn't prepared for what happened next. As soon as she finished her speech, a reporter raised his hand. "Miss Wilson, isn't it true that under your leadership, employee satisfaction dropped by 40% and staff turnover doubled?" Emma blinked, momentarily caught off guard. "That's an exaggeration," she stammered. Another reporter chimed in. And isn't it also true that since your sister took over, the company's stock price has risen by 45%? The cameras captured Emma's stunned expression as more reporters pressed her with pointed questions. She had planned to control the narrative, but instead it spiraled out of her control. Humiliated, she stormed out of the conference, her plans in tatters. 6 months passed. Under my leadership, the empire was thriving. The companies were expanding, employees were motivated, and the charitable foundation Dad had started was helping thousands of people across the country. One afternoon, I was working in my office when there was a knock at the door. To my surprise, it was Emma. She looked different, tired, subdued. Gone was the polished, haughty woman who always radiated superiority. "I heard the foundation is running a new program," she said quietly, "helping people learn business skills, people who need second chances." I nodded, unsure of where this was going. I want to help," she said hesitantly, "if you'll let me." There was a long silence. Part of me wanted to turn her away, to remind her of everything she had done to me over the years. But then I remembered Dad's words. Family isn't about blood. It's about love, learning, and sometimes learning to love again. "Class starts Monday at 9, I replied. "Don't be late." Emma turned to leave but paused at the door. "I'm sorry," she whispered, so softly I almost didn't hear it. "For everything." "I know," I said. "Dad knew you had it in you too. That's why he arranged all this." That night, I opened the last letter Dad had left for me. On the envelope he had written, "Open when Emma apologizes." Inside the letter read, "My dear Lily, if you're reading this, it means the real work is about to begin. Leading companies is important, but leading people back to their better selves is the true legacy I wanted to leave. Take care of your sister. Take care of our people. And remember, I chose you not because she failed, but because you succeeded at being human first and a businesswoman second." Tears blurred my vision as I finished the letter. Dad's greatest gift wasn't the empire, it was the lessons he had taught us. Today, the empire runs smoothly, but it's no longer just about making money. It's about making a difference. Emma started at an entry-level position in the foundation, working her way up and finally learning the lessons Dad had tried to teach her for years. The foundation's programs have expanded to 50 cities, helping thousands of people rebuild their lives. In my office, next to a photo of Dad and me at my college graduation, there's a newer photo. Emma and me at the foundation's first graduation ceremony, both of us smiling, real smiles this time. Dad built an empire in secret, but his greatest achievement wasn't wealth or power. It was teaching 2 daughters, one by blood, one by choice, that true success lies in how we treat others. Sometimes late at night, I walk through the empty office, remembering the little girl who once thought she didn't belong. But Dad knew better. He knew that family isn't about blood. It's about love, learning, and finding a way back to each other. And in the end, that was worth more than all 15 companies combined.